Okay, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. What a great turnout. Really pleased to see everybody, all this curiosity to learn about Google Groups and Drive. We know from talking about it in the past that a lot of people come in with a lot of knowledge already, and we want, and so some things seem basic. As we go along, just realize that we also know that some people in the room will be really needing that information. So before we get going, I think we're going to need to get a couple more chairs available here. I thought I saw people heading this way. I think it's time to introduce myself. I'm Doug Hamilton. I work for Instructional Technology, do a lot of work with the DISCO, and I'm here with my colleague Heather, who's going to introduce herself.
I'm Heather Malika. I manage the help desk.
And we know lots of you already. Today we are going to be starting out with sort of the 10,000-foot view and how to access, which may seem obvious, but there are multiple doors into Google Drive. So there may be some new tricks that we learned today. Installing Drive on your computer, which you may be thinking, well, it's already on my computer, but there's another way of putting it on that for some people makes it very convenient. Team drives, Google Groups, and just a reminder that we are recording this for the benefit of people who couldn't make it to today's session. The camera is pointed at us, it's not pointed out there, so have no fear. I'd like to start out by getting a little information that will help us to tailor today's discussion to the needs of the people in the room. So I'd like to see if any of you have already been to. We've done variations on this session several times in the last 7 or 8 months. So, anybody here that's been to those? Yeah, I thought so. And so we'll try to say everything in a new and different way. And then show of hands, please. How many Mac users in the room? Okay. And Windows users?
Oh.
So it looks like about 80%. Pretty much both. Anybody jump back and forth? And in your work currently, are you using a shared drive, often known as the S drive? So hands high. So we've got a lot of people in that situation. Some very important information that we need to impart about that. And so it's good that you came today because we're very happy to have this chance to talk to you. And then I guess I'd like to get a sense of how often you're currently using Google Drive every day. Anybody who's using it every single day? And that's about 60% of the people in the room. And so I'm just going to assume that the others are a little bit less. Anybody who has never really knowingly used Google Drive? And no hands showed up. And then I'd like to add one more question that's not on the slide, and that is, I'm curious to know who is using Google Drive and Google Docs, slides, sheets, for collaboration. So you have multiple people looking at, yeah, okay. So that's something that the Google Suite is kind of uniquely good at, so I'm glad to see that people are making use of that. Anything else that we need to cover here? So, our 10,000-foot view.
Okay, so what is Google Drive? For those of you who use this every day, this is kind of an overview of what you already know, but perhaps in just a higher level picture. Google Drive is made up of 2 things essentially: My Drive and Team Drives. So let's drill further into that. So if you can envision My Drive as the new For Mac users, it's your users folder. For Windows users, it could be your H drive. And then any file saved locally. Anything that I might save on my computer could move to Google Drive. And when I say envision, nothing's moving automatically. You'd have to actually move it there. But it's just, picture these things on my drive. Team drives. Team drives are the new S drive for Windows users, shared drive for Mac users. It doesn't mean S drive's going away. We will cover that later. But just if you can sort of make that analogy, Team drive is the S drive, shared drive.
And one question that we get is, we all have highly responsible jobs. What we do on our computers, we want to control all that information responsibly. So people always ask, is Google Drive safe? And so we want to answer that in 2 or 3 different ways. One is that because Google Drive makes sharing so easy, that's one of its strengths, but also potentially one of the vulnerabilities. We're using the word overshared. It's kind of easy to share a whole folder, for example, and sort of forget who it's shared with. And for that and for other reasons, IT and St. Olaf have a service called Cloud Lock, which is basically scanning what we're doing on Google Drive in all its variations all the time, and it detects high-risk data. It'll recognize the Social Security number, for example, and the owner of that document will get an email basically alerting them to the fact that there's something that's out there potentially that shouldn't be. The other point that we'd like to make is that in many ways we want to be using Google Drive as a replacement for what we currently have servers here on campus doing. And maintaining those servers, keeping them secure, that's a lot of work, and we will continue to do that. But what we've found is that our small team, good as they are, is nothing on the number of very highly skilled experts that Google has. So that means that things are well engineered, that there are millions and millions of users who are going to be running into glitches and problems, and that some of the very best experts are basically already on it. Whenever you encounter something, they're usually already on it. And then finally, St. Olaf is in the process of making a specific recommendation about use of Google Drive, and that's not yet officially published, but that is in the works. Yeah. So this is something, how to access Google Drive, that sometimes takes people a little time to wrap their heads around, because your information on Google Drive is out there, but the way you look at it could be one of several ways. So, for example, a lot of people first encounter their own information on Google Drive via their email. So you're logged into a web browser, you get a document that's shared with you, you have an icon that says save to my Google Drive, and when you push that, it goes into your own area, and you're looking at it via the web browser. And there are a lot of capabilities. One of the things that happens, though, when you're using the web browser is that things have to be uploaded and downloaded if you want to work with specific files. For example, if you had a Word document, you can't really work on it directly through a web browser on Google Drive. So just to complete the picture, what we're going to be talking a lot about today is Google Drive on my computer. Well, you might be thinking, well, it's already there because it's in my web browser. I can see Google Drive by going to it when I'm logged on to Google. But there's also something that you can pretty easily install on your computer, which makes those same files available whenever you need them to operate with directly. So rather than, for example, having to download a Word document, you can work with it directly. And then just to complete the picture, mobile devices. Increasingly, that's where we do a lot of stuff, and our phones are with us all the time. And Google Drive, the app, on either Android or iOS, is really very capable and offers some capabilities that you might well find useful. So the picture we built here is have this one place where your stuff is, and you can look at that one place in various ways. But what you're looking at, the information that's in that place, is the same. You're just looking at it through a different window. So, well, here we have just an illustration of reinforcing what I just said, in that if you're getting to it through your web browser, the waffle iron icon is how you would get to all things Google, and Drive is one of those. What we're going to be talking about at this point is installing something called FileStream on your computer that then allows you here in Windows to see it as just another place on your computer and work with it as just another place on your computer. So for example, dragging and dropping files, double-clicking on files to open them. And on the Macintosh, here we have our view into Google Drive. And in both these cases, and we'll talk a lot more about this later, we're looking at two different folders or volumes in a sense, My Drive and Team Drives. And beyond that, it's whatever you have below that in the hierarchy.
So who needs Google Drive on their computer? So Google Drive, same thing as FileStream. Okay, so who needs it? Who would want to use it? One, there's two scenarios. One, you like to use Windows Explorer, or you like to use the Finder if you're on the Mac. If that's how we'll go back a slide here. If this is how you like to find files, you go here, you go here, you go here, you know, your Explorer. That's how you like to find files. And again, on Finder, on a Mac. If that's how you like to work and find the files, FileStream might be for you. The other one is more of a, yes, you definitely need this if you are an Excel, Word, PowerPoint, if you have Adobe installed on your computer, you need FileStream. We'll talk more about that later. How many are heavy Excel users here? Okay.
So just to sort of reinforce some of the points we've already made, working with a native application file directly on your computer, it's not only a convenience thing. If you're starting to use Google Drive and you're working through the web browser, and you therefore have to download a file in order to work with it, and then remember to re-upload it, there's lots of ways to go wrong there. You could do it twice and forget which version you worked with, or in various ways kind of lose track of what's where, and then in addition to that, it's just inconvenient. So working with native application files, and by that we mean a Word doc, an Excel file, directly double-click on it, it opens up. It also doesn't take space on your computer's hard drive. When you install this thing called FileStream, Google Drive on my computer, it basically gives you the icons that you're used to working with when you're working with whatever you do on your computer, but they're kind of really, really small until you need them. Because, just if you're curious technically, what happens is that you need to be on the network when that file comes to your computer as needed. It doesn't all get downloaded, just in case. And the third point there, files are backed up. Well, that's also happening if you're using shared drive. It's very important in obvious ways that pretty much anything you're working on that you would be sad if you lost, would get in trouble if you lost, needs to be in a place that's routinely backed up, and that you have a way of recovering it if there's a problem. That's not your computer. So working with Google Drive and having it installed on your computer as file stream allows you to work with your files with the confidence that they're routinely backed up. And then finally, access team drives. Team drives are a form of Google Drive that multiple people have control over. So my team, for example, instructional technology, 6 people. We have a team drive. We actually have 2 or 3 different ones for different purposes. And there's no single owner there. Really important when somebody leaves. As key people come and go. If you have 1,000 or so files in Doug Hamilton's Google Drive, and I've shared them appropriately, if I ever leave the college, there's a lot of stuff to go through to share them appropriately. So team drives help you with that. It allows you to basically work with the right size group where you all have an interest in sharing the files. And in that way, it's basically the same as the S drive, for those of you that have been working with the S drive or shared drive. So there's a couple drawbacks, potential drawbacks, just things to understand. First one, you can't see shared with me. If you, I don't know about you, but I end up with a lot of Google Docs in particular, G Suite things like Google Sheets and Google Docs that are shared with me, and I can work with them. I can see them in my web interface with Google Drive. Those don't show up until you add them to your drive. They don't show up on your computer in file stream. So just realize that something that's shared with you is not going to appear as if it's on your computer until you add it to your drive. And then if everything's in the cloud, then it's pretty obvious you have to be online in order to get to it. So for a large percentage of our time these days, we are online. It's not an issue. You just need to think ahead if you're going to be somewhere where you have to work with files and you know you won't have a reliable internet connection. It's more detailed than we're going to get into this morning, but when you need something and you know you're not going to be online, it's pretty easy to put it on your computer. It's just one of the options when you right-click on a file. Is this me or you?
You. I can talk.
No, I'm okay. So, I need to point. Oh. I'm curious, does anybody here have FileStream already? So we have people that are already working with it. So I'll just quickly talk through how you would get it. If you're a Windows user, your start menu, that thing that flies out, one of the options, it's in the lower right-hand corner, is Software Center. And when you click on Software Center, it opens the Software Center, available software, and Google Drive FileStream is one of the programs that we place on there. It's automatically maintained, so it's the latest version. If you click on it and just follow the next couple steps, it installs very quickly on your computer. And then with the Macs, we've been able to engineer a way of making sure that it's already installed on St. Olaf managed computers. A couple technical reasons why we haven't yet done that with Windows. It does show up on new machines, but it's not automatic. It's a couple clicks to get it on Windows machines. But I should also say that if you find FileStream useful when you're working with a computer at home, and it's not a St. Olaf managed computer, you're not going to see FileStream in Software Center. It's not going to be automatically installed. It's still easy to install. When you go to in your email, you go to the Waffle, you go to Google Drive, under the cog, one of the choices is download FileStream. And here again, it's very quick installation. I'm always amazed at how fast it is. It's like 20 seconds.
Is this true for both Mac and PCs?
Yes.
Okay.
And Google is sensing whether you're on a Mac or a PC.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's do some demonstrations. So how to work with FileStream, uploading files, working on files, and we'll talk about online versus offline. So uploading files to Drive. So when you first open up your FileStream, on the Windows side, you will see it down here in the lower corner, which actually I need to start it.
So obviously this isn't Heather's everyday computer, and FileStream is installed here, but this computer has multiple uses.
Yeah.
Users.
Yep. So we'll go over to, okay, it's already, so on the Mac side, we'll cover the Mac side first then. So on the Mac side, Drive FileStream shows up in 3 prominent places. First one on the desktop, Google Drive right here, and then up in the top corner here, it shows a little icon up there, and then it also shows in the Finder window. So if I were to double click on here, you can see Google Drive is right here. So again, on the Finder window. So everything in my Google Drive is accessible here. So I can drill into my drive and, into various folders, a training folder there. If you're on the Mac side and you accidentally eject it, the icon will disappear, but your Google Drive didn't go poof away, but it's actually just temporarily unavailable, so you just go ahead and reconnect it again. Up in the top corner here, the icon is grayed out a little bit. You just click on that and you go ahead and sign in. Please note the first time that you install FileStream, you will be required to do username, password, and yes, 2-step. So just note that. So if I click on the icon up here, I can click in there. There are all my files. So that's on the Mac side. We'll switch back over to the Windows side. So on the Windows side, I searched for it. I waited for it to start. And in the lower right corner here, here's my Drive FileStream. Okay, I can click on that. The other option is if I go to the File Explorer, it is my G drive. 99% of the time it'll be your G drive. Sometimes you have a drive that's mapped differently, so it might be something different. But just all you have to do is look for the file stream. So I'll select it again, My Drive, Team Drives. Everything from the web browser is the same. So My Drive, it looks exactly the same. Okay, so if I go to a training folder, and let's say, so what's nice about this is you can see what the different file types are. So earlier I mentioned if you're a Word or Excel user, you need to open it through FileStream if you want to edit it. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up a Word document. If I double click on this, I can edit it. So if I say people A, and I hit save, and I close it, it will automatically update Google Drive. I didn't have to download, I didn't have to upload, I didn't have to do anything. I just double clicked on the file, and the computer was smart enough to say, oh, this is a Word document. Same thing with Excel. You double click on it, and it's smart enough to open up Excel. And then again, that's through file stream. So on the flip side, what happens if you double click on a GDoc or a G Sheet? Same behavior. It knows what it needs to open as. So if I was to double click on Google Groups, it knows, oh, I'm a G Suite app and I need to open in the browser. So it will open all your files, whether it's through your computer, Word, Excel, through the applications, or through your browser. So it's smart enough to know that. If I were to upload files, let's say I have this Why Google Drive document on my desktop, I can go ahead and just drag it over, and I've just moved it to, essentially I've copied it over to Google Drive. So it's just simple drag drop. Same thing on the Mac side. Drag it from your desktop up to your Finder window, and you're simply just moving the document. So, and then now if I, said, why Google Drive? Because it's cool, okay? One thing to remember is we're in Word, we have to save, Excel, save. Sometimes we get out of that habit with GDocs and Google Sheets, we get out of the habit we don't have to save. So remember, you gotta save here. Save, and then I'm gonna close it. And I'll upload to the cloud. And then if I can demonstrate on my Mac, go to My Drive, go to a training folder. I don't think it uploaded yet. Oh, there we go. So if I double click on it, and there's my cool, okay? So again, I went from one computer to another. Same file, it was saved in My Drive. I was able to open it, edit it in this computer, save it up, open it, and now I can edit it in this computer. Again, Microsoft Word. Why Google Drive? Because it's very cool. Save it, close it. On the Mac side, you get this bar, kind of a progress bar. Then eventually on the Windows side, we should get a date stamp update. So, question?
Can we put a folder in there?
Yep.
And another question, if I want to share with somebody outside the institution, is that possible, or is this
You can share it outside the institution, but the way Google works is they need to have a Gmail account. So,
any Gmail account?
correct.
Right.
Yep. So I created a test folder in here. You can create a folder. Yep. And then this Why Google Drive, very cool.
If you already have Excel or Word open, can you go through open in there to get to the G drive to find things, or do you have to start in the G drive?
No, you can go ahead and,
So it's just like any other file?
yep, open other documents and this PC. So again, here's my Google Drive, browse, training folder, Why Google Drive. Yep. So it's just, that's what's nice about it, is it works in kind of our native, Windows Explorer or Finder. You can open stuff that way.
So we're going to pause for questions in just a few minutes. We want to just complete the picture so that the questions will encompass this next thing that we're going to be talking about. I just wanted to, because I know that there's some people in the room that do lecturing. If you want, you can install FileStream on the computer that you usually lecture, you know, in a classroom or something like that. Because it doesn't really take up any space, nobody else can log in as you. So there's no reason not to do that. So it can possibly provide an easy and convenient way of having your things with you if you're routinely teaching in a particular place.
Are there anybody here who works on files
Oh, yes.
offline, kind of takes their laptop home and works on such? Anybody here? One over there? Just maybe, okay. So just some things to be aware of is if you take your laptop home, as long as you have internet access, same thing. Doesn't matter if you're in a coffee shop, doesn't matter if you're here, it's Google Drive. It's up in the cloud, you can get access anywhere. Where it gets tricky and what we mentioned earlier is when you're traveling, let's say to northern Minnesota and there's no internet, okay? So that's a trip that needs to take some planning. So if you're thinking in advance, saying, okay, while I'm up there, basking in the glory of northern Minnesota and the lakes, and I want to do a little bit of work on the lake, I'm going to say work on the training folder, and there's going to be no internet. You need to plan in advance and go here, right-click, Drive file stream, and then make it available offline, which I actually did that in a prior training, but otherwise you'd make it available offline, okay? You're planning in advance, I need this folder available when I have no internet. That does two things. That downloads all the files essentially to your hard drive, okay? So if it's a really, really, really big file folder, just something to be aware of. The other thing is so when you're editing the file, you're up on the lake, you've done fabulous changes, you have no internet, and then you look at your phone, later on in the day when you're eating supper and you're like, oh, I wonder what that looked like. And you open it on your phone, and luckily your phone actually has signal. And you're like, oh, my changes aren't there. The changes aren't there because until your computer connects back to internet, the changes aren't going to be sort of sunk back to the internet. But it's not a manual sync. You take your computer, you go to the coffee shop, and connects to internet, northern Minnesota, and boom, your changes are there. You open the same file on your phone, and the changes will be there. It's automatic. You don't have to say, do it now, or do it when it's available. It'll automatically do it. So, the other stipulation is by definition, Google Suite files such as Google Doc, Google Sheet, and Google Slides are not available unless you have internet. So if you have grand plans to sit by the lake with no internet and work on your Google Slide presentation, it's not going to work because it needs, by definition, internet. Asterisk. I have heard that on the iPad instance of it, or even on your iPhone if you want to work on your iPhone, I heard that there is a method to do it. So just sort of a asterisk there.
Heather,
Yes.
is it possible to make your entire drive available offline, or is it only individual folders or files?
It is, and we'll talk about that offline. There is a method, and it's something that you might want to say, okay, well, if I had this choice or this choice, let's talk about it. So yes, but it might be a different option for you. So we can talk about that. Yeah, it's called Google Backup and Sync. So we'll talk about that. Okay, team drives.
Team drives, and if we can get to the next slide. I'd like to start out with the graphic I have here, which is, you recognize this, my drive, that's my Google Drive, team drives, and you'll see a number here. This happens to be a picture of mine. And they're sort of for various purposes. The team that I work with, Instructional Technology, iTech, has a team drive. We actually have made another team drive for our collaboration with the research and instruction librarians. There's an example of a couple team drives that are limited duration projects where we need to collaborate, but we're not going to need it in the long term. That just gives you kind of a range of uses, but I think a good starting point is to think of Team Drive as potentially a more versatile version of the S drive or the shared drive that you've been using. And one of the things that's exactly like the S drive is that a group of people are allowed ownership of those over those files. So people can come and go, just as with the S drive. People that have ownership about over everything that's in the drive. That's an important piece of versatility in many team or departmental situations, and it can't remember what I was going to say. There is the ability of sharing things from team drives without ownership access. No, there isn't. Just said something wrong, right?
Right.
Okay. So people in a team drive, it's just like the S drive. If you have access to it, you have access to whatever's there.
Everything. Yep.
Everything.
Everything or nothing.
And there are some reasons why I would do things on my Google Drive as opposed to the team drive for precisely that reason, because I need more flexibility in how I'm sharing. But there are many ways in which that functionality is exactly what you want. I've already addressed they use multiple drives for different purposes. To me, when I was first thinking about team drives, I thought, scarce resource, we'll get a team drive, and then I thought, but wait, there may be some parts of it that I only want a few people to have access to, and so how can I make my one team drive work? The answer is, you can make team drives for whatever purpose you want. You can create a new team drive when there's a new project and give access to the right people for that project. So it's a slightly different way of thinking about it, that you don't have to work with IT to get a new team drive, you can make one for your project, etc. I already talked about not being able to share individual folders. This issue, the second bullet, which is can't move folders, sort of everything that's in the folder from your Google Drive to the Team Drive is not something that you would do necessarily every day, but if you're migrating a lot from your drive, then that's something to be aware of. It's not possible to just sort of easily drag and drop. And then this third bullet, which is you might still need a shared drive, is really important to make a mental note of this. And the little bullet underneath that, how do you know when you might still need a shared drive? What's appropriate for team drive, what's appropriate for shared drive, is if your department is migrating all or part of what you have on an S drive to a team drive, there are a lot of issues in there that need to be thought through. So we encourage people not to think, oh, I'm just going to move everything from the S drive to the team drive. You need a consultation with IT, and you can get that by requesting it. One of the reasons, beyond a technical reason, is that there are various interested parties. Might be a whole department that is concerned about what happens when you move and what you move and what you don't. So it's a conversation, not a, oh, okay, I'll do that next Tuesday because it's spring break, if that makes sense. And then the answer to why you might want to still keep some things on S drive, which was the previous slide, the shared drive, is there are some situations, and this is what would emerge in a consultation with IT, where you might get tangled up if you're working with certain types of data or files on a team drive. An example would be if there are 5 people that are routinely updating a spreadsheet, and they could potentially want to come to it at the same time. That's something that's automatically negotiated when you're just working from an S drive. It's basically going to say, Doug's already using this thing, so you can't do anything until Doug releases it. That functionality is not present in a team drive. So that's a type of situation. Another situation would be databases that have lots of files or a large amount of data wouldn't lend themselves very well to a team drive. I think I've mentioned everything else that's on that slide. It is something to approach thoughtfully, but many people are finding that kind of sounds harder than it actually is, and that when you start digging into it, it'll be fairly obvious what can move, what can't, and how you might want to use team drives. Yep.
If I create a team drive and I share it with a number of people, some of whom might be very basic Google Drive users, it's going to be contained within that folder for them, is that correct? So
It'll be contained within the
The
team
drive,
drive.
yeah.
within the team drive.
Which you can think of as the big folder.
So some people are familiar with Google Docs only in that they might get an email that says, I've shared this with
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
Would it, so they would need some degree of training presumably to know how to access the appropriate drive. Is that correct? The
That's-
appropriate folder, I should say.
That's right.
Minimal
And
training.
if they have access to it, then they'll see it when they're either in the web browser looking at their drives, their team drives, or their own drive, or in file stream. Is this a time to sort of pause for questions? We do need to spend some time on Google Groups. So,
Yep.
so
Next is
let's
Google
move
Groups,
to
but if-
let's move to seeing what questions or scenarios you want to talk about.
So if I was to create a shared drive folder, but the document was not owned by me, it was owned by someone who might be transitioning out of college, does the permission of that document go with that person when they leave, or is once it is in a shared drive, it's always there?
So are you saying shared drive, or are you saying team drive?
Sorry, team drive. So
Okay, so yeah, so
if
team-
I move something I have access to, but I'm not the owner, into a team drive, that is a way to protect the access rather than going in to change the owner.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, and that's what's nice about team drives, is it doesn't matter if, certain people leave or come, as long as you have the rights to it, then it stays within the team, because essentially everybody has rights to it, whether it's owner right or read-only right.
Is making an additional team drive fairly straightforward?
Yep. Yep. A lot of times if you think, okay, we're forming a committee for, spring safety, and we have these 10 people. Something to consider is, maybe we want a team drive for all the documents that we're gonna create for this spring safety committee. So that's a use. A lot of departments use it, but it can also be for special uses. Yes.
Yeah, and that's a good example of why moving certain things to team drive to a team drive really hugely expands the functionality of what you're able to do. Collaboration being one example.
So in your example of the 10 people, would all 10 just automatically all have the same permissions and access to the files? Or can it be, well, you can create, you can edit, you can only read, or is it down to the per person level, or is just everybody on the team has the same thing?
Depends how you add them.
Okay.
So if you have spring safety drive and you add the spring safety Google group, then spring safety Google group is gonna be one right. But if you add, Greg and Doug, you can say Greg has owner rights and Doug has edit rights, and Inga has read-only rights, so, yeah. So if you add the people singly, you can specify rights.
Okay.
Do you feel there's any need to back it up, your drive to any external devices at all? No reason at all?
No.
Okay.
No.
And Google Drive, these various variations, keeps versions of
Yes.
previous
Yeah.
versions of files. There's some that you can see, and then our administrators in IT, if you really run into a problem, it's often possible to find things even if it's not obvious to you that it's still there.
Yep, there's ways to, there's versioning, there's ways to go back to the different versions.
Okay.
Yep. So, okay, now we're gonna talk Google Groups. Hey.
Difference between a group and a team.
Yeah. Okay, Google Group. Everybody knows what a Google Group is? It's another word for email alias. It's another word for mailing list. These are words that were used in account services. Mailing list, email alias. That's the same thing as Google Group. How do you create a new Google Group? You go same way as always. This is the same method. You still need to go to account services. Log in. Manage mailing lists. And then you type, super cool email alias for today. I'm not going to click next, but you get the picture. Same method. You create it here. If I were to click next, it'd say, great, Heather, your group has been created. Now, to manage it, you need to go to Google Groups. And then it provides you a link. Don't be alarmed if when you click on the link and you go to Google Groups and it's not there. There's a little bit of a timing. Probably wait 5 minutes, stretch your legs, go grab a cup of coffee or check your emails. It'll probably take at least 5 minutes.
So that doesn't change the name of the list, the address?
Correct.
At all?
No, it's still this, it's still email alias at stoliff.edu, okay? Please don't try to create a Google group from Groups itself. You'll get some weird email alias at groups.com or something like that. Don't go that way. Always go account services, then you'll get the at Stoloff. So, how do you get to Google Group? 2 ways. Type in groups.google.com or hit the waffle and your groups icon. So I'm going to go back here, hit the waffle and groups icon. Okay, first interface, click on My Groups. You will get a list of all the groups that you belong to, that you're a member of, and that you own. Not all these lists you can leave, some of them you can. If you can leave the group, you will see an icon over here. Yes?
Does this include any groups that you belong to that are not St. Olaf based?
Potentially, if you click on, so up here, you can see that I must belong to a ResNet Inc. group. So if I were to click on here, then it would show the groups that I'm involved in ResNet, okay? And up here, so yes, depending on where you are. So just check up here at the top here. So if I go back to St. Olaf, now I'm just seeing my groups in stolaf.edu. But you might see other groups here. Okay?
Thank you.
Yep. So let's start to add people. So if I go to my Drive training, if I click on the list here, over here in the corner, I can select Manage. So I know that I'm the owner of this, So then I have the rights to add people and remove people because I am the owner. There's two ways to add people to Google Groups. You can direct add them or you can invite them. If you think back to what Account Services did, Account Services direct added them. Most of the time, they were just direct added and they didn't get a welcome message. They were just added and they started getting emails from the email alias. It was sort of a blind ad. Here you have a choice if you want. So if we direct add and I start typing Doug, what's nice about this is I don't need to know Doug's username. I can just I'm like, Doug, I don't remember your last name, but it's Doug, something. And it pops up. So, and it's by email address. Okay? For those of you, does anybody manage really long lists? Yeah, okay. So this is gonna be an adjustment. You have to add the @stola.edu to all the usernames.
But it might come up automatically.
If you hand type them, it will. Yep, If you add it from an Excel document or something like that, you have to sort of do the logic in Excel, username plus @stola, and then you get that, and that's what you add. So yeah, so it is by email.
If we migrate it, does it automatically?
If you migrate it, that is different. It automatically puts in all the users. Yep. And just know, speaking of migration, is if you migrate a list with a lot of people, again, don't click on, if you go to groups.google.com and it's not there right away, you might need to wait longer than 5 minutes, especially on the groups that take a long time. So, with a lot of people. So just sit tight, it'll move. So,
Heather, if you do the direct method, they don't get any notification that they've been added?
potentially. So, if you do the direct add and you just put in their email and hit add, they don't get any kind of notification. And this was just like before, okay? If you want them to get some kind of notification, you can put in a welcome message and say, hey, welcome to our group. These are the rules. This is what it was created for. You might find a reason, a good reason why a welcome message might be useful for the group. So if you put in a welcome message there, then they will get an email. If you do not put in a welcome message, they will not get an email. They'll just start getting the email alias ones. Don't be scared with this. Google likes to warn you. Use this feature, and please use this carefully. Sure, Google, yes, we are using it very carefully. So, so I just click add, and I accepted the defaults on the email subscription that they get all emails. Just leave the default as all. It works the same way as the old method. So, he has been added. Doug has been added.
I have a question here.
Yes.
Can you take from an Excel document and copy paste in?
Yep. But then you need
If they
to.
are not St. Olaf names, if they're off-campus names?
Yep.
And, okay, thank you.
Yep. We'll talk about a setting that you'll want to make sure is checked
Okay.
in a little bit. So, the other option was invite members. Perhaps you are managing a list where it is vital and or important that they receive an email and they click accept. That is one option, depending on the list that you're managing. So to change roles, again, I went to manage, I'm in members, I'm in all members. Okay, so right now, Doug is a member. If I select this box here, this actions box sort of livens up, and then I can do some things here. I can remove him from the group, maybe I added him accidentally.
No. I was enjoying it.
Or I could change his role, so I can make him a manager. So there we go, he just got promoted.
Whoa.
Moderation. How many people have moderated email aliases? There, a couple. Moderated means if somebody sends an email to the Google group, it doesn't go out until it's approved. Yeah, so it has to be approved. before before all the members see it. Okay. So, number one, you need to make sure that moderation is turned on. If you are creating a new group, you need to manually turn it on. If you're migrating a group that has been moderated, it's already turned on for you. So, depends on how. So if you go to settings, and all this information, if you're taking notes or if you're just trying to remember this stuff, this information is on our website. So I'm going to settings and moderation. So this is where you would select moderate messages, moderate all messages to the group, or moderate messages from non-members of the group. So that's the checkbox. So if you want to moderate a group, those boxes need to be checked. I'm actually going to go to manage my moderated group. So again, settings, moderation, and you can see that I've already selected the box there. So who can approve? By default, owners and managers. In account services, there used to be a moderators type. There is no moderators type role in Google Groups. It's essentially managers. Please note that managers in Google Groups has a little bit more rights than a moderator would. A manager can add people. So just something to take note.
Currently, we have a group that's moderated, using the old term, by 2 people. When that migrates, will they both automatically be migrated as moderators? Okay.
Yep. The setting for moderation flows through when you migrate, along with the people who can migrate, or moderate.
Moderate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. How to approve messages. 2 ways. If you go into the message, see here, there's 2 pending messages. If I click on that, otherwise it's over here, messages, pending messages. Okay. Derek is always wonderful and sends me a couple test messages so I can demonstrate. So I'm going to approve test number 1. Select it, and up here, these buttons highlight. Okay? The first one is, sure, go ahead and approve the message. That means that it'll be sent to all the people on the email alias. There is an option here, post and always allow future. Essentially what that does is has anybody heard of the poster role in account services? No? Okay. Essentially it's the poster role. So that is an option, but if you never used it before. And then, deny or report. So I'm going to approve test number 1 and post it. And so then that just released the email, so then all the people in the email alias would get that email. The second and the easier method to approve moderated messages is if you go to the message, see there's the email I just approved, test number 1 from Derek. If you are a moderator, you can select the message. So here's test number 2 that Derek had sent me, and I'm like, should I approve this? Should I not approve it? The easy way to approve this is just to reply. And then send. So I didn't type anything, I just said reply and hit send. Google's smart enough to say, oh, okay, it's approved. And then release the email for distribution. So there it is, test number 2. Okay? Any questions with that?
It's
Okay.
about 12:30 now.
Okay. Let me do, I mentioned to Deb about the external users, permissions, and then basic permissions. So if you have external users that you need to add and or they need to be on your list, you need to make sure that this box is selected. Allow members external to this organization. Okay,
If they were on a migrated list, is that already allowed?
it is,
Okay.
I think.
Good answer.
Okay, I'll quickly mention, since I know we're out of time now, what else can I do with groups? The team drives, as I mentioned, I kind of answered your question. You can share to a group. We couldn't do that before. You can share, so if you created spring committee, Google group, you can share a team drive with the spring committee. So anybody you add to spring committee Google group, they'll already have access to that team drive. You can also add them to My Drive, Google Groups to the My Drive, to the calendar items. Again, all this information is on the website. Since we don't have time to go through it, it's on our Google Groups website. Last thing, reminder, April 10th is the date that all of our aliases are moving to Google Groups. You can do this ahead of time. It's a good opportunity to kind of look through what groups you manage, what groups you are the owner of, to see if it's something that you want to migrate, if it's something that you want to keep. Please know that if the alias has not seen activity in 2 years, it will be deleted. We figured that was a broad enough time frame to allow some activity. If you have a list that gets an email once every 3 years, and it's very important that you go to account services and make sure you migrate it before April 10th. So, and that's it. Any questions? And that on the bottom right-hand corner is where the slides are, if you want access to that.
I would like, before we go to questions, because we will stick around and answer your questions. Those who need to or want to leave, you're very welcome to. I would like to add, because we talked about S drive, do I move it to a team drive, do I not, which bits do I move? Just to underline, IT will come and consult with you on that. And almost even better, they'll push the button and do the migration. So even though a user can't easily sort of drag and drop whole folder hierarchies, the IT people can do that, and they're very willing to do that. And in fact, it's a better idea to do that. It saves you work, but it also makes sure that it's done correctly.
Questions?
This is kind of a more general piece. When I send out a Google sheet for sharing, I'll start out, this is specifically work orders. In the beginning, everybody has editing privileges. At some point, I close that down so that I can keep better track of what's changing. Is there a way to change the permissions for the entire group, or do I always have to do that individually by who I share with?
If you add everybody individually, you need to change everybody's rights individually. If you add them as a group, then you could just quickly change the group access.
So if I just create a group for that, can
But if it's in a team drive, you can't change the permissions for individual users.
You can change the permissions for individual users. You can't change permissions for individual documents on a team drive.
Or folders.
Or folders, right. Team drive, it's all or nothing. Okay, well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
And then